Hello, everybody. This is Boaz David, and I'm here with another webinar for you guys, fashion designers, fashion brands, anybody who's into fashion and wants to learn some more. So I'll get in a second to what we're doing here today, but first of all, I'd like to make sure that you can hear me and you can see me. So if you guys don't mind, I think you can actually raise your hands. If you can do that, that'd be great. If not, if you can't find that, at the bottom of the screen, there's a chat box. You can always just, type there. We can hear you, we can see you, whatever it is that I can feel that I'm not talking to just my guest, Matthew, which is fine, but I need you guys to, to listen. All right, cool. I get some hands. Awesome, so you can hear me. So, like I said, welcome to another webinar where, it's hosted by me, Boaz David from Human Bee. We're a company that provides design, development, and production for fashion brands. For those of you who are new to us, and my job with this webinar is really provide you guys with tools, information, connection, anything that I can think of to help you start, build, and grow your fashion brand. Today's subject is on-demand manufacturing, which I think a lot of you are interested in. It's a very sort of a new concept, at least from what I know, and we'll discuss this. But before we do that, actually, one thing that I forgot is, 1 second, guys, a little bit of housekeeping, just so everybody will know what is happening here. So at the bottom of the screen, you'll see a few things. You'll see Q&A. And basically what that is when every time you have a question while we're doing this interview, please go ahead and type it there. We will answer all the question at the end, just so the flow of the webinar will go quick and nicely. And next to it, you'll see polls, and it's a couple of questions just for me to know where are you guys, what are you doing, a little bit about where you are in your business, so I can gear next future webinars to that. And the last I think on your screen is the chat. Like I said, you can chat between you guys. I'll probably put links on it. I prefer you guys put questions in the Q&A section. And that's it. So let's start. My guest today is Matthew Corkin, and Matthew is the COO of Onpoint Manufacturing, a factory that specializes in on-demand production, apparel production. And I know Matthew for a few years now, and every time I speak to him, it's an enjoyable conversation, but I always learn something new. Usually about technology or something that I didn't know about. So hopefully today, you guys will learn some new things as well. We'll talk about on-demand manufacturing. We'll talk about some technology in the industry and, everything in between. So Matthew, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you.
All right, cool.
Thank you.
So by the way, Matthew is in the West Coast. I'm in the East Coast. You probably will hear some traffic at some point. Part of
yep, you could hear it. We have traffic here as well.
That's true. That's true. We just spoke about it a second ago. So Matthew, can you sort of take us with a short version of, I guess, your career or what brought you here or brought you to Onpoint Manufacturing?
Absolutely, absolutely. And first of all, thank you, Boaz. Really enjoying the opportunity to be here, and thanks everyone for joining. And as Boaz said, I'm the type of person that welcomes questions and challenges and whatnot. What we're doing here with Onpoint Manufacturing and On Demand is we're trying to really change the paradigm in the fashion apparel industry. But we'll get to that in a little bit. But as Boaz was saying, just a brief introduction about myself. Gosh, many years ago after graduating college, I got into the retail world and was always kind of drawn to retail and the technologies associated with supporting it. over the course of being in this industry for over 20 years, I've worked for mobile point of sale companies, PLM companies, product development, I would say CAD CAM companies, 3D virtualization providers. And I think we're at a critical point here with the industry. And as most of you know, I mean, I don't think it's all doom and gloom. I think there's a tremendous amount of opportunity, because I think now that the retail industry, brands, retailers, and designers are trying to find a way to become more profitable, more sustainable, and get quicker to market and get closer to the consumer. So I've worked for some really large organizations on the technology side. I've worked for some really small ones. And I guess one of the things that brought me to Onpoint was, over the course of my career, working with some of the brands that everyone's familiar with, I call them household brands, whether, they're in the sportswear category, ready to wear, haute couture. It was always fascinating to me how long it took for a brand to get a product to market. And, it was always sort of left me scratching my head, color trends, design inspirations, textile designers designing, 12, 18 months out in some of these companies. And, what we're trying to do with Onpoint is we're not going to, we're not the silver bullet for the entire industry, but we really want to help others. And if there's other manufacturers that want to partner with us, that's great. We take a really agnostic approach, which is one of the things I really enjoy about what I do, is we want to partner with people to create that new paradigm where maybe not all of your product is going to be produced with massive, minimum order quantities, and you expect it to see in 6 to 9 months. Part of our model is we have a minimum order quantity of one unit, and we can deliver it, should you wish, directly to the consumer. So that, in a nutshell, and you folks on the phone or on the webinar will know that that is a huge differentiator in the industry.
Big time. Like I told you, Matthew, is for years I get these inquiries about on-demand manufacturing, because young designers, even nowadays, even established brands, inventory is the biggest problem in the industry. Has been for a while. So having the stock, especially now with retail changing, is eating your cash flow. And by the way, I agree with you 100%. The industry is changing. There's a lot of things that are sort of off and can be really sort of daunting and look like, the whole world is collapsing on this industry. Mm-hmm. I personally think it's a great time for opportunities. I think things are going to come out of this. It might not be the only good. The good thing is that things used to be working one way, I guess, when it comes to supply chain, manufacturing, retail. And now there might be different ways, and companies might find their own way of doing things. And I think it's exciting. I think, there's a lot of opportunities there.
Yeah, I would totally agree with you. And when you look at our world as a whole, right? I mean, not just if we push aside the fashion apparel sector, I mean, just think about our world in on-demand, right? We've got Netflix, we've got Spotify, we've got things like personalization. I mean, you want the coffee beverage that you want made the way you want, should be made in 3 minutes, and there's 88,000 something drink combinations when you go to a Starbucks. So it's happening all around us. There's no reason why it can't happen in the fashion and apparel sector. I understand the logistics and the challenges of that through the course of my career. When you start talking about things like logistics and supply chain, sure, those are really big issues to handle, but even the largest sourcing agencies in the world are addressing this now. So this is something that in the course of my time at Onpoint, I haven't met one person who hasn't been at least interested in it, much less figuring out how they can incorporate a model like this into their product development workflow.
That's cool. No, it makes a lot of sense. So I guess you sort of told us really what you guys are looking to do here.
Looks like you're a little bit frozen there, Boaz.
Oh, can you guys hear me? Am I better now? Oh, now you're frozen. Guys, can you hear us? Looks like. Can you hear? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Oh, you can hear me. Can you hear Matthew? You can hear Matt. Oh, so Matthew. All right, Matthew is the challenge. Oh, yep, he's probably going to come up in a second. But yeah, I think that I've been talking to Matthew for really a few years now, and since they're introduced that concept, and I was telling him that we work a lot with young designers and startups, and that's always been one of the challenges. Hey, Matthew, you back?
Yeah, I don't know what happened there. I apologize.
That's all right.
Your screen froze and I thought it was you. So
It's okay. They can all hear us, I think, back.
yeah.
Cool. So yeah, if you want to continue where you stopped about really on point.
Yeah, I don't know where I left off. I think I was talking about sort of the on-demand surrounding us as a society. And, I think that's where, when you look at some of the real hot points in the industry, things like personalization and sustainability, getting closer to market, curbing overdevelopment, those are things really, among other things, that our model addresses really quite well and quite strongly. When you talk about sustainability, producing as needed, what I often term it as, the traditional model is design, produce, and then let's say hope to sell at MSRP. Our model kind of flips that around a little bit and enables someone to design, sell, and then produce. And normally when things are, I would say when you follow a business process that way, the majority of goods that are sold at MSRP. So there's no margin erosion or anything like that. And, again, those are things, I think, and if we kind of dovetail into that personalization, personalization is a huge opportunity for a lot of companies. It's been going on in the footwear category for a long time. And I think you look at the technology sector and the amount of companies that are springing up that are, let's say, online configurators that will help people, even if it's just a colorway, change a colorway of a shirt or a collar or a pair of slacks. That's coming. But as I said, in the footwear industry, it's been going on, Nike and Adidas started years ago, and Nike continues to kind of push that around the personalization end.
No, I mean that you're absolutely right. The whole world is going in that direction, and it gives a lot, and that's what I like about it. One of the things that just being close to new designers is that they had a hard time to build a business because of a lot of the things that we speak about. They had to produce ahead of time. They had to commit to quantities. So, to begin with, their budget is small, and now it's all going into inventory. This really gives them an opportunity to build in a pace that they can build. They make, they get paid, and only then produce. It's completely different process for them. And outside of the fact that from an environmental point of view, I mean, it makes a huge difference. Everybody's talking about inventory that's being produced and then dumped somewhere. There's no better situation than just make it.
Yeah, and I completely agree. I don't mean to interject, but when you talk about our model, units of one produced and delivered within a matter of business days, why would an emerging brand or even an established brand leverage your working capital on inventory that, let's say, may or may not sell at suggested retail price? And when you talk about all the other things that go into that, like warehousing and logistics and, well, we've got this here and this there, we don't know where that's going to go. But if you have a production partner or a production network that can produce things after they're sold and deliver them, statistics show that people will wait, a reasonable amount of time for something that they've personalized and that has been produced for them.
Absolutely. Which sort of leads me to the next question. Can you a bit describe to us the process of working with you guys? How does it really work?
That's a great question. When we started this, over 4 years ago, It was very interesting because over the course of that, we've done pretty much every type of product. However, now we're narrowing our focus. So to your question, how do you work with us? We really need things in a digital space, and maybe we'll talk about this in a few minutes, but you know, getting, let's say, the apparel industry out of the analog age and into a digital space. And by that, I mean, I'm not talking about things like augmented reality or mixed reality yet. I'm talking about things like getting your patterns into a CAD format. There's plenty of good solutions on the market, and we need things like a graded pattern set. We need things like a tech pack. And if you don't have that, that's perfectly fine, because that's where we kind of create the handoff where someone can reach out to you, Boaz, and you can actually work with them on, let's say, bridging that analog to digital space. So it's really quite simple. You know, we want things like CADs, a tech pack, and a sew-by sample. There's some other nuances based on that. And when I talk about product categories and the type of, I would say, apparel that we're actually focusing now, we're actually looking to focus more on higher end women's wear, dresses, skirts, things like that. We can also do slacks. But that isn't to say that we can't do what I call Los Angeles type t-shirts, high-end t-shirts, and other types of garments, because we have done pretty much, you know, we've done tactical gear in our factory, we've done athleisure, we've done, I would say, you know, some very ornate types of gowns, but there are certain categories that we are more we're focusing greater on now.
And by the way, like, is because I would think that that would be a nice market for that specifically, like wedding dresses or you know, things like that. Have you done things like that?
Bridesmaids dresses, yes.
Okay.
But wedding dresses, you know, with the beading and whatnot, that's something that we did in the past and we're trying to stay away from. There's other people, I think, out there that can probably are a little bit more, I would say, better to handle that.
But then in that case, I would assume if it's something that is not embellished, it's probably doable. You know, if it's not embellished with embroideries and you know, beads and all the stuff, that's probably would be possible.
Correct. Correct. Yeah, and it's not something we want to ever turn away. We're always happy to do a quick assessment. If someone, you know, has, let's say, CADs, a tech pack, maybe a sew-by sample, or they can send us a picture of something they want to produce. You know, within 24 hours, we can give you a quick answer. Like, let's explore this further, or maybe we could redirect them to another manufacturing partner, because that's the other thing we're trying to do, is kind of create this or facilitate a network of on-demand manufacturing partners that may do, let's say, down interchange jackets or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Just the printing, do you have any access to printing if somebody needs that, or not?
That's a great question. We are in the process of bringing in our own printer, a direct-to-garment, or what's called either DTG or DTF, a direct-to-garment, direct-to-fabric printer. We don't have it in our facility yet, but soon.
Okay, no, that's cool. I think that again, it opens.
That's a great question, because that's another thing that, you know, you hear this term micro factory a lot, and you know, we don't really like that term, because what is a micro factory? I mean, it's kind of like how you define sustainability. There's a lot of different nuances to the definition, but you know, when you're speaking in broad strokes, yeah, we will in the future have the capability to print on a fabric, produce the garment, and deliver to the consumer.
That's awesome. That's really cool.
Days.
And so what like an average lead time? If, let's say, everything is set up already in your factory, you guys just getting an order, how long is expected for that item to be produced and shipped?
Okay, once a product is set up in our system, it can take anywhere, you know, again, it depends what's in queue from an order's perspective, but I like to quote on the conservative side, maybe 5 to 7 business days.
So in a matter, if I'm getting an order, just to put things in perspective, in a matter of 2 weeks, there's a good chance that they will get product in their hand if it's being shipped directly from you.
That's correct.
That's not too bad at all.
Yeah, no, I mean, and oftentimes it's quicker than that. I mean, especially once we've gone through the setup. There is a little bit of onboarding with styles. We set things up in our system, and there is some work. We have a specified team called our launch team that works in our factory that, let's say, gets all of your digital assets into a space that obviously resides in our factory, but that enables, I would say, the product owner at any time they want to place that order to directly place that order from their website or whatnot. We're working on integrations now to different web providers as well.
So you mean someone can, just so I want to make sure so people will get it. It'll get to a point where someone can place an order on my website and you will get an order, or? That's
coming. That's coming. API integrations are coming to facilitate that, but currently that's a little bit of a manual process. You'll send us a notification, then we execute the order, but it's
still good.
Yeah.
Still
no, our vision is to create a true digital product development pipeline where we can receive what we believe is the next iteration of a traditional tech pack, something you and I have talked about, called a smart tech pack, which is a machine readable file, which will enable someone to send us an order. It'll automatically go into our factory and kick off the manufacturing routine.
Yeah, that sounds great. And materials, will you store the materials for that? Let's say I have a style that I have in your system. How does it work? Every time I need to send you trim and fabric, is there a certain?
Great question. What normally happens today is we don't do sourcing, but one of the value add services that we provide is we will warehouse your fabrics at no charge to you for up to a year. So that's, again, notions, embellishments, all, of course, we keep that in our facility for you. So when you do place an order, it's all on hand.
Cool. Wow. You really, the goal is to make it as easy as possible for a designer to build business.
Well, sure, and it's flexibility too, and it's being agile, and to be able to do that. Especially when you talk about, I met so many people thinking about starting a brand. People have started a brand, they're kind of hamstrung by trying to find that manufacturer that, their minimum is 50, and that puts me in a pinch from a cash flow perspective. Our minimum is 1, and I'm not saying that's our model, and that is different. We don't. If someone comes to us and says, can you do 10,000, men's medium t-shirt, that's really not our model. And there's other manufacturers that can do that better than we can. But if people are thinking about, what I'm finding now is a lot of people are interested in having a small buffer inventory, is what I call it. So, we produce, let's say, a run, if you will, and then as needed, we'll drip feed them based on e-commerce fill-in orders, or maybe a little capsule collection that they want to offer. We'll create those kind of on demand.
That's cool. And so I'm assuming that a part of it, of able to do this, because, the question that rises, how were you guys able to do that where others weren't able to do that? Is this a question of technology? Is it a question of optimization? Is it a question of just a setup?
I think it addresses all those things.
Okay.
It is definitely a question of technology, because the state that we want to get to is that, I would say, humanless state from the product ingestion standpoint. So we want to, let's say, once a product is stood up in our system, we want to bypass, if you will, our launch team and have our clients be able to receive an order from their website, let's say. This is one use case. And that order will feed into our order automation system in our factory and kick off the manufacturing routine. So, technology is a huge driver of this. And the gentleman I work for, he actually created this model in a different industry, the book industry. So this sort of model comes out of printing on demand books, which is, as everyone knows, really what made Amazon what it is today.
Well, I think it even started with, I guess Amazon, you're right. That was really the first model that lends that, and changed, by the way, the whole books industry.
Completely. Yeah, absolutely. And, and our goal is to shrink that delivery time. I mean, I think in the not too distant future, we're focused on getting it down to 3 business days.
Wow, that's cool.
And we're also, go ahead, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, and to do that, obviously we're in our, I would say, short-term horizon, we're also looking at building additional manufacturing facilities around North America, and then possibly 1 or 2 in Europe as well.
And would these be the ideas for them to handle different type of products as well? Different categories?
Possibly, yeah. And then also to be closer to those largely populated centers.
And actually, something I forgot to mention, you guys are in Florence, Alabama, right? Is that the?
That's correct. The factory is in Florence, Alabama, the first one. And then, as you and I have spoken about, there's talk about building one on the West Coast, one in the Northeast, and then two or possibly 3 in what we call the middle of the country.
Cool. So let's talk technology a little bit.
Okay.
Because I know you. By the way, Matthew is a guru in technology when it comes to fashion. I don't know where he gets all this information, but I think he knows about technology before it's even invented.
I wouldn't go that far, but
sometimes that's what I feel when I speak to you. But anyway, so yeah, can you sort of think or kind of share about, few technologies that sort of pop up in the last year or so that you see that are really going to solve some significant issues in the industry?
Sure. I think that, from my perspective, I mean, something that isn't going to solve an industry issue for fashion apparel, but solve a life issue is 5G. I think once, and again, these are my personal thoughts. Once that becomes propagated and readily available for everyone, I think we're going to see that new horizon of speed in so many different markets. But if we turn the conversation back to apparel and fashion, for me, I've been particularly excited to see technology companies popping up in this space, not just a year ago, but maybe in the past 3 to 4 years, that are catering their solutions to the emerging brand. And whether they're like a cloud-based PLM company or a content management system company, 3D virtualization providers, things like being able to log on to a website to source your own fabrics and get them delivered. The world is definitely getting smaller. People have heard that. For me, I'm really excited about these smaller technology companies that have created tools that can, I would say, harness the power of the internet to meet the needs of the enterprise client, like a global, Fortune 50, a fashion apparel company, but also allow a user that has, let's say, 3 employees to use a PLM system that's based from a browser. Because it's essentially, over the course of my career, it's been really, a wonderful, I would say, awakening to see people sort of say, I got to get myself out of this sort of scratch pad, sketch space somehow. And when you talk about 3D virtualization solutions, people being able to not quite sketch on a screen yet, but when you can make changes to a garment in a virtual world and then use the changes on those, let's say, drawings to go back to the 2D CAD pattern, stuff starts to get really exciting when you start, I would say, connecting the dots. And when you talk about, as I did, like, I would say a virtual, or I'd say a cloud-based PLM system, having all fabrics, notions, and everything in a library that can also house 3D metadata as well as CAD data. There's a lot of connection points, I think, that will be brought together in the next 12 to 24 months, which will, I would say, start to really create that digital revolution in the fashion apparel industry. I think, augmented reality and mixed reality and things like experiential retail are huge. I still like to go into stores. I still like to see how someone merchandises something. A lot of people don't care for that though, but they'll be able to do that maybe from a headset, from a laptop, from a mobile phone. So it's an exciting time.
Yeah, I think so too. I think what you said is very much true, is that technology is making things a lot easier and accessible for the smaller brands. yes, it's helping obviously big brands and established brands, but I think smaller brands are able to use things. You know, when you think about some of the stuff that 5 or 7 years ago only Amazon was able to do, now there's a lot of these solutions that you can do, like a small brand can do. Like you can manage your customers, you can have the AI, artificial intelligence and data about your customers. There's a lot of tools, even in the last year or two, that really made things a lot easier and kind of taking us into the future. I think that you're right. I mean, I don't think
Nothing against Microsoft Excel. It's a great application, but you
yeah,
can't manage your lines in Microsoft Excel really,
right.
efficiently when you talk about, I would say, the sharing economy that we're in. You want to socialize a design change with someone, just send them a link or send them a, almost like a Slack message. You can put a link to your PLM system in there and that'll access it, immediately.
Well, that's the other thing. Yeah, the access to it. Anybody can do it from their smartphone, basically. There's a lot of things. I
Sure.
mean, quite frankly, if you want, you can run your business from a smartphone, which sounds, surreal, but it's real.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's that's what I mean. Is it's an exciting time, and you already see smaller brands that are starting using this and building this into their DNA, and they're able to really take a lot of market share in the business.
Yeah, and I think that's the whole digital native conversation,
Yep.
which I totally agree with you. I mean, these are people who, it's fantastic. My wife and I have millennial daughters, and it's people who want to run their business on this. And I prefer a little bit bigger footprint, like a maybe an 11 or 13-inch laptop. But if you can do it with this, fantastic, because these are people that are, at larger brands, they're going on inspiration trips around the globe. And when you can snap a picture of a fabric that is a certain colorway and have the artificial intelligence in, let's say, your cloud-based PLM solution recognize the Pantone library automatically, so those are colors that you maybe want to socialize with your merchandising team. I mean, these are things that exist today, which is really exciting, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I remember a few years ago I was in a conference and this company presented the idea of actually, that they could, someone can take a picture and like, your audience, your customer will take a picture and you as a brand, can basically recognize anywhere on the internet who took picture with these pants. And I remember looking at it and thinking, oh my God, this is great, but it's scary. Like
Yeah.
this is one of these things, but it makes a lot of sense, and now it becomes more and more the norm. Yeah. So, and I think a lot of it is actually happening in the supply chain, like in manufacturing. I think isn't that you can now basically have automated cutting machine that is just being fed the I guess the style or the pattern and cut it for you, and from there it's going to
Yeah, and that's one thing that we're working on with, I would say, our sister company, which is called PAT, which stands for Purchase Activated Apparel Technology. It's bringing, I would say, all those incumbent technology providers that cater to this industry into a room together so we can help develop this new iteration, if you will, of a traditional tech pack and bring about a machine readable file that can take disparate data from solutions that in the past don't really communicate well with one another, but that will make them interoperable to, let's say, kick off that automated manufacturing routine. If it's with us, great. If it's with another manufacturer, that's fantastic too. Those are things that, from what I've seen, it's been really refreshing over the past 2 or 3 years to see, I would say, more of an open-mindedness, if you will, with these technology companies to partner with someone that may be considered like co-opetition almost. That's what I call it. So, because nothing against them, they're trying to drive revenue just like brands, retailers, and designers are trying to drive revenue. But I think there's enough opportunity and issues to solve in this industry for people to get together and to create, let's say, a better paradigm of how products are designed, produced, sold, recycled, you name it.
I think that's a really a great point. I think, you know, you definitely feel it in the industry. And I like that you guys have this attitude because it seems like, you know, for years it looked like this industry is mostly about competition. Okay. Nobody wanted to share whatever they had, the fear of copying, the fear of, you know, someone stepping on someone else just because they're sharing information from them. A lot of that, you know, it's my thing and I'm going to protect it. And I think the last few years that is dramatically changed. You know, whether it's maybe the sustainability thought, maybe it's the young, you know, young designers that coming into the picture. Their thought is exactly about that. That there's a almost like a global mission. It's not just my mission to big my brand, to build my brand. There's a bigger mission here to take the industry somewhere, to create something bigger, to do something together. And you definitely feel there's a lot more collaboration and it's fun, quite frankly. I think
Yeah.
at the end of the day, everybody wins from that.
Yeah, I think it's I mean, you know, I think it's a higher sense of consciousness. You know, I mean, look at the companies now that are banning fur, you
Right.
know, and look at the companies that are trying to, you know, I'm located in Southern California, not, you know, a proverbial stone's throw from Patagonia, you know, it's headquarters. They've been doing this stuff for years. And it's nice to see that sort of bubbling up. Sure, they're an outdoor company, it makes sense for them, but that's bubbling up into high fashion now. And, you know, companies in New York like Eileen Fisher have been doing it for decades. And we're really starting to hear more about, I would say, issues like that, as well as people trying to keep their eye on that profitability needle. And
Sure.
also, you know, so I think it's, you know, again, it's fun. It's a fun time to be in this space. And, you know, I think getting back to one of your points, if you're an emerging brand or starting out, I mean, these are things that are part of your DNA, I'm assuming, right? Because you're not one of these massive companies that have your sourcing and supply chain set up that are overseas that, you know, you're more like, you know, a dinghy, which can change direction, you know, with just one stroke of the oar versus an aircraft carrier where it takes you months or maybe years to change your supply chain to bring a different product to market or use a different methodology to bring a product to market.
I think that's the biggest challenge that bigger brands are having. You know, they realize that the market, the industry is going in a certain way. The customer is demanding something else. But for a million years, this is how their supply chain was set up. This is how they did things. And now to take this whole thing and, you know, turn it inside out and sort of figure out how we're restructuring it, it's not something they can do in one day. You know, they have plans for years, you know, years ahead to do that. And meantime, all these smaller brands are coming on. That's where I think there's opportunities. Smaller brands coming up. It's part of the DNA. This is how they do business. So
Yeah,
absolutely.
it's like that whole sort of radical transparency thing. I mean, you know, look at those brands, you know, and I mean, yeah, they're California based, but
Sure.
you know, companies like maybe Allbirds in the footwear category or Everlane. You know, Everlane on their website, they will tell a customer what it costs them to make the garment. And you know, if you agree with that and you like it, then purchase the garment. And I think we're going to see more of that actually.
Oh, I'm sure about that. Yeah, you know, when I saw this the first time, I was sort of shocked because again, it was against everything that I experienced in the industry at this point. But it opens the door. It really, all of a sudden, oh my God, you can look at it differently. You don't need to be afraid of that. You can, you know, take a step and do things in a different way. Yes, you might lose something, but you probably will gain a lot more. So I love that.
Yeah.
So first of all, guys, I see in the chat a few questions. I really would like for you, if you can, post them in the Q&A part. It's easier for me to then go through the question and answer them. And we're going to get to the Q&A in just a minute. You know, to wrap this up, Matthew, I guess my question is, if any of our listeners here want to work with you guys, what should be their next step?
Should email me or give me a phone call. I'm happy to speak with anyone. You know, again, and explain a little bit more about our model. That will start a process. I can usually send people a great video of really articulating and demonstrating what our factory looks like and what we're all about. You know, getting back to those hallmarks of minimums of 1 unit, delivered directly to the consumer if you would like that, and produced quickly. And it's made in America. And we can talk about all these other things that support that, things like profitability, sustainability. But I would encourage, I'm happy to speak with anyone, because and if someone has a manufacturing partner that they're currently working with that they like, that they want to introduce us to, that's terrific too, because while another manufacturing partner to us may be seen as a competitor, that's okay, but I don't think anyone's doing exactly what we're doing today. But if we can get more people into this network that we're trying to create to facilitate more responsible, quicker, and more profitable product development and products, that's great.
And that's really what it is nowadays. And I for you guys, I just in the chat I shared Matthew's email, and I'm also going to share Onpoint Manufacturing website if somebody wants to look more into that. Yeah, that's cool. So let's get into some questions. We have some questions here. Let me just go through them and see which ones or where to start. So the first question is, how can you make one piece of anything in days? You first need pattern fit for production, graded. What about fabric minimums? Even if it's a fabric stock program, shipping times vary to receive fabric. Also, available fabric may not be unique. I think we sort of answered that in a way, because the idea is that it can be manufactured in days, but most of the things that are described in that question is already in hand. The pattern is there, the fabric is there, the trim, the setup on your system as well. You guys know now, okay, what happens with the style, and that's really where it becomes. It's really just cut and sew in days, if I would simplify that.
Yeah, a little bit. And to that person's question, I encourage them to email me. I'd love to have a phone conversation with them. That is not uncommon. I have heard that a lot. This sort of incredulous, wait a second, what's going on here? And that's fantastic, because this is what we are doing. But it does take a little bit of explanation, like you did a great job doing, Boaz, but this is what we do.
No, yeah, and I think that's really part of like the setup that allows you to do that.
Yeah.
So another question is there, which I figured will come up. It's hard to be all things, to all designers.
We're not.
Yes, and I think you were very clear about it.
Yeah, so, we're not. But and again, as I said, part of this network we're looking to create. If you're stuck, there are other people that we can maybe help facilitate a relationship for you to go to someone like in Los Angeles who has minimums of 25 that does address this type of product category, or someone in New York, or someone in, I don't know, Cincinnati. So those are things that, we're always happy to help facilitate.
And the next question from that person is, I would imagine cost to be very high to make one unit. We're really going back into cost, I guess.
Our cost is, well, this is kind of a tricky question, but I normally tell people our cost is higher because there is an initial setup fee, which is a variable. And those are things we're very transparent about. I can't answer what a setup fee is, but our plans for the future is to get to a point where there is a zero setup fee. And a lot of that has to do with technology, a lot has to do with automation, not really inventing anything new, but getting us into that state where we're using digital assets, because data is the new currency. And when we're using digital assets, like at the beginning, middle, and end of the product development lifecycle, that's when we see the setup cost, essentially being nil. But to your point, I've had conversations with, as I said, household brands that everyone is familiar with. And when I talk to them about what it costs to produce a unit of one through us, and if they understand truly what unit cost is, we have almost always come out favorably in those conversations. Because when they understand really what unit cost is, things like logistics, the cost of markdowns, cost of square footage to put it on a retail sales floor, pay someone to sell it for them, it really is a pretty compelling conversation, and we're happy to have that. And at the end of the day, if we are more, that's okay with us, because you're ordering it usually after it's sold.
Yep.
So again, there's this whole sort of ideology in the world talking about radical transparency that it's kind of fun being in the situation. If it makes sense for you, great. This is where we are. If it doesn't, if you want to dip your toe into that risk waters of doing things overseas and, working on like a different container load or whatnot with someone else and the shipping and things like that, that's up to you. And we're happy to have that conversation.
And I think that, the reality is, I'm curious. This model seems to be geared more towards direct to customer. Am I correct to say that, or is not necessarily?
Not necessarily. I'm bringing that up because that's something I think a lot of brands are trying to get into. When we speak with these emerging brands and these clients that we have, they don't initially come at it that way, but then after there's that level of trust that we build and the quality that we can produce, they start saying, well, why would I double or triple handle it when I can just send you my packaging? I know how it's going to look. And when I get an order from my website, you guys will make it, package it, and deliver it.
Right. No, I mean, that's by itself a great thing. What I really meant is that selling, let's say online, is someone who sells direct to customer. I would assume that model fits them better than someone who sells to stores. Is that correct to say?
I think so. Yeah. So you're talking about that wholesale dynamic.
Yeah. Sorry.
It's interesting because I had a conversation yesterday with a producer in I would say a production house in Los Angeles that makes a lot of clothing for the biggest of the biggest retail stores. And, this whole on-demand model was top of mind for him because they're currently developing in China, Vietnam, and Mexico. And, when you talk about, let's say, I'm just going to pull this out of the air, like a Macy's or a Nordstrom or a Target or something that within a specific geographic location wants to do a capsule collection, how are they going to do that through their product development partner that is used to doing things overseas, right? And how are they going to, and there's risk in capsule collections, right? But normally they're designed around short run, short duration. Those are things that we've had a lot of really interesting conversations with brands, retailers, and designers about.
I just saw a message that you guys don't see Matthew's email, so I just posted it again. The reason why I asked that question is because when you think about costs and you think about selling direct to customer, meaning, without that middleman through the stores, it gives you more room to pay more for it. Like there's going to be some sort of price to pay for making on demand. I mean, it's naturally the case. And I think someone who understands how this whole thing works will understand that. What
I usually do, Boaz, forgive me for interjecting, but I go back to the coffee argument, which I talked a little bit earlier. 20 years ago or 25 years ago, say, most Americans or what have you, right, for the coffee drinking public is going to be paying $4 to $5 to $6 for their coffee drink. People will tell you, you're crazy, but it's personalized, it's made on demand, it's made your way. If it's not right, it's remade. And there's a lot of other tangible value adds that we offer too. I mean, you're picking up the phone and you're speaking with someone in essentially the same time zone. You're not, if I'm in Los Angeles, I got to think about, man, I think it's like Hong Kong, it's like 14 hours ahead of me. I got to, there's things to juggle, there's language barriers. I mean, I'm not even going to go into the whole political scene about tariffs and whatnot. There's a lot of other value adds that we don't necessarily use them as, I would say, sales levers, but they're points of consideration.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. Especially if you really want to support also Made in USA, which became really hard over the last few years.
Yeah, it's very hard. Well, I think it all started with NAFTA. Some of my I still have them. Some of my favorite articles of clothing. I've got a few pieces. I'll name names. I've got a few pieces from Patagonia. I got a few pieces from J. Crew. On the tags, they say "Made in the USA." Now those are old, right?
Sure.
and they're wearing out. But those things are kind of hard to find now. I mean, I'm based outside of Los Angeles. Los Angeles has been for decades considered sort of the denim capital of the world. there's still a lot of denim manufacturing here, but there's still a lot going to Central and South America as well.
Mhm. Another question that we have is actually about the webinar and reaching out to you. So I'd love to share this with my team and advisor. Will we be able to get a link to today's webcam? Yeah, you'll get a link. I'll send an email and I'll share Matthew's email and all the information, because I still see that, oh, maybe you guys found his email. His email is pretty simple. It's
It's my name. It's my name, Matthew, Matthew, at onpointmanufacturing.com. One word.
Exactly. So, but I'll share all this. I'll share all this later on in a follow-up email. Another question here. Sorry if I missed this, but once all of the digital assets are received, does Onpoint produce a sample for review? How does the sampling process work?
Great question. I don't know if this caller joined the webinar late, but another, I wouldn't say it a hard requirement, but something we like to see is a sew-by sample in the onboarding process. If you don't have one, that's okay, but that's something we can address with our launch team as I can introduce you to them. It really depends on the style and the product category you're looking to develop, but as I said earlier, fully vetted CADs, a tech pack, and a sew-by sample are kind of our minimum requirements. But if you don't have a sew-by sample, that's sometimes okay as well.
Makes sense. And I think that person did. By the way, if anybody, I forgot to say that, but if anybody wants to come on the call and just talk to us and ask questions, just raise your hand. I'll be more than happy to bring you on. You don't need the camera. And just the voice works as well. Next question is a lot of questions about your email. I think that was solved already. Okay, another question. Can you give us a few examples of companies that you've worked with, like a company who was established and produced, let's say, 10 collections a season, or a smaller one with 3 collections a season? I don't know if you can share names or not. If you can.
In a lot of these situations with larger brands, we really can't share names. As you would imagine, there's a lot of non-disclosure agreements. But if that webinar attendee wants to email me, I can send them a lookbook of a digital lookbook video of companies that we have designed and produced for. I think that's probably the best way to address that.
Cool. And another question, which I think is the last question, is it a package price, meaning everything included, labor and materials, or just labor?
Yeah, we're not a full package company. We, I think maybe this caller may have come on late. Part of the service that we provide is we will store in warehouse your notions, embellishments, and fabrics at no charge to you. That is up to you as far as, I would say, getting the elements of your garment to us.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, so the sourcing is done, if I'm the brand, the sourcing is done by me, and I provide you basically with everything that you need to make a product.
Correct.
Whether it's the patterns, whether it's the fabrication, materials, sew-by sample, pack, all of it, so you can, and yeah, I mean.
Yeah, and within our network that we're creating with PAT,
right.
Purchase Activated Apparel Technology, there are some large fabric, I would say, supply companies that we are in conversations with that want to work with us, that want to cater to the small emerging designer, and they're in conversations, I would say, internally to offer a very low minimum for someone who wants to order from them, ship to us, we'll create the garment, and then ship to the end consumer or ship back to the designer or the brand.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, we had a webinar here not long ago with DigiFair, which is a platform online. I think I connected you with you. I don't know if you guys ever were able to speak, but basically that's what they do. Anybody can go and find smaller quantities of fabrics from all around the world. So again, that supports that. If you have the process can be, I have a fabric and I only need 10, 15, whatever, 20 yards, or I just want one roll. They buy it, ship it to you. The fact that there's
a really large company based in Atlanta that does that, and I think they will do minimums of 2 yards.
Yeah. So, no, I mean, I think
email me for questions. I'm happy to entertain and answer as much as I can.
Oh, that's another good question. Does Onpoint have certification for ethical production or any kind of certification, actually?
That is a great question. Currently, we do not. However, I would answer that in saying we have a completely open door policy. Whenever you want to come and visit our facility, give us a proverbial heads up, and you can spend as little or as much time as you want there. We have had, for some of the larger clients that are interested in working with us, we have had third-party auditors come in, and we've passed with flying colors. You know, I mean, we are based in America, and I understand, like, you know, being outside of Los Angeles, that there are some questionable facilities maybe still in the city of Los Angeles or the confines of the county for manufacturing. We're completely different. We have an open door policy. Come and see how workers are treated. Come and see the breaks they take, the lunches they have. That's another area that we're looking to sort of address, if you will, in this whole sort of apparel development process, is the human capital. And I hate to put it in such linear terms, but I mean, especially since the tragedy a couple of days ago in India again, yeah, we're not even in the same conversation.
No, I know that, and I think that, in all honesty, just hearing you speaking about all of that, to be, I think you presented that idea even without a certification.
Yeah.
I think these are all the questions that we had here. If anybody has something else, this is your last chance.
Or they can email me.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true. Hopefully you guys got his email. But again, I'll share the email. You know, contact Matthew if you need some more information, if you want to learn something else about him. I think that's it. Matthew, thank you very much. That was a cool,
Boaz, thank you.
fun conversation. Everybody else, I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you next time. Have a good
Yeah,
day.
I welcome any emails or whatnot. And Boaz, thank you again, and looking forward to more future conversations.
Take care. Have a good day.
Great. Thank you, everyone.